Hi class! Today I'm going to be teaching about cellular respiration. I don't know how I got here since I'm a Spanish teaching major, but I'm going to be teaching a biology class today about cellular respiration. So who knows what respiration means? Yes.
Breathing?
Breathing, yes. So cellular breathing is what we're going to talk about today. Just like humans, we breathe in oxygen, and what do we exhale?
I don't know.
Carbon dioxide. So we're going to talk about what our cells breathe in and what they exhale. So first, in order to get a little bit of basis about cellular respiration before we jump into that, we're going to talk about how to break down molecules. So let's pretend that we have a piece of paper. Paper is made out of carbon and hydrogen. So it's a bunch of molecules of carbon and hydrogen all grouped together. So what happens if we light a little match right here? What's going to happen to the piece of paper?
It will burn.
Yep, it's going to catch on fire, right? And as it's on fire, what does the paper do? Does it stay as a piece of paper?
No, it turns to ash.
It turns to ash, exactly. So what is actually happening is a chemical reaction. And that chemical reaction is the heat, the energy that's being produced by the fire is breaking these chemical bonds between the carbon and the hydrogen. So it's breaking down those bonds and it's breaking up into individual carbons and hydrogens. So what if we took a jar, a big jar, and put it over the top of our piece of paper that was on fire?
It would burn out.
Okay, and why do you think it would burn out?
Because there's no oxygen.
There's no oxygen, exactly. So no oxygen can get in here anymore. So what does that mean the purpose of the oxygen was originally? This is oxygen. If the fire can't keep burning without oxygen, it means that the paper, this chemical reaction of the burning of the paper and the breaking the bonds between carbon and hydrogen, it needed oxygen, right?
Yes.
It was the fuel for the fire. So if we were to draw a graph, and this is the energy level, and this is the time that we were burning our paper, it would start out here, and it would go up because the flames got bigger, right? The oxygen was producing, but then we put the jar on it at this point, and the energy would start going down, right? Because the flames start getting smaller. It doesn't go out right away, but it goes out pretty quickly.
Yes.
It goes out much faster than it went up. This is a much steeper rate that it went down. So these are the reactants. And this is the products. So this is going to set us up for what cellular respiration is, how we break down the elements that are inside our body, just like this process breaks down carbon and hydrogen. So obviously our body doesn't catch on fire as this is happening, so not as much energy is released when cellular respiration is happening as it does when a chemical reaction like this is happening. So we're going to break down glucose molecules. So this is going to be our glucose. My pen's running out of ink. Glucose is made out of carbons. So we're going to have 6 carbons. So there's our 6 carbons, and we need to break them down. So the first place that we're going to break it is right here in the middle. So it turns into 2 sets of 3. But when this happens, do you remember when we were breaking the carbons? Oh yeah, do you have a question?
Would you like me to find you another pen?
Maybe.
Okay.
If there is one.
Okay.
So as we break down these carbons, remember when we were burning paper, how energy was released when a bond was being broken? Okay, so energy, just like that, is going to be released when we're breaking down carbons. So 2 electrons are going to come out of this, and these electrons so they have to be stored somehow until we're ready to use them. So they are going to go into NAD plus H. They're going to go right here between the D and the H. So this is where they're stored, always. The electrons, when you break up carbons, go right in between the NADH. So now we have a set of 3 carbons and a set of 3 carbons. So we need to keep doing this. We need to keep breaking them down so they are individual carbons. So we're going to break down this bond. Oh, thank you. TA. So as this bond is broken, electrons are released again, just as were released in this original. And those also are placed until we're ready to use them in the NADH. So now we have a single carbon and then one more bond. So we're going to break one more. Electrons, and they are stored in the NADH. So now we're going to do the same thing for this other set of 3 carbons. Remember what happens? Just like the paper, we're breaking these bonds between the 2 carbons, so energy is released in the form of electrons, and the electrons are stored in NADH. So once again, we have a single carbon, then we bring this guy down, this bond, we break it, and what's released? These guys again, 2 electrons. And what are the electrons stored in?
NADH.
Perfect. So as a total, how many single carbons do we have now? There were 6 originally. We broke all of the bonds, so now how many single carbons do we have?
6.
We have 6 single carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now, in every single bond that we broke, electrons were released. But where were they stored?
NADH.
Perfect. So how many bonds did we break total?
5.
5. So how many NADHs do we have? If there's 1 for every chemical bond that we broke.
5.
Yep. So we have 6 carbons and 5 NADH.